Reality TV, brainwashing kids. People doing bids, hurt kid apocalypse.
Yo, what up, what up, what up? We are here at Revolutionary Addictdotes. I'm one of your hosts, Blue Nile, as well.
Angie.
And we have an amazing guest today, Mr. Kyle.
What up, what up?
What up? So we're going to piggyback on what we were discussing in our second episode and our first episode, actually. Trauma, generational trauma, and, you know, the interplay between trauma and addiction. And, you know, this is a recovery-based Sober Stories podcast. So we wanted to have a male perspective as well, just to broaden the horizons, you know, and talk about the racism in the rooms of 12-step programs and how it affects us as Black women, mixed race, you know, me, queer identity, and coming into the rooms, not seeing myself, and then being tokenized and fetishized, and especially with the uprising of the 2020, the re-uprising, you know, white folks being like, teach me, and be like, you better go read White Fragility.
Oh, man. That book is highly problematic. Anyway.
Read something, because we ain't here to teach you. But, so we want to come on here and basically just share. For me, you know, we touched a lot about being in the music, me being in the music industry, and Angie and I actually met blacked out at the Douce bar. We didn't meet because we both don't remember leaving the Rose Bowl.
But when we saw each other in the rooms, we were like, I know you, but I don't know how I know you.
But being around these, you know, entertainment and entities and dealing with, you know, sexism, mainly sexism. So all the isms, you know, and how alcoholism has basically, you know, thrived and perpetuated the pain I have because I needed to drink it to be in certain situations, and all of the innuendos, and, you know, waking up one time and I'm in the studio and I ended up getting passed out, and the producer has his fucking hands in my pants, you know what I mean? Like, just that stuff that we go through. So, right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, I mean, you have long-term sobriety. So what's been your experience in the rooms?
Well, I mean, I got sober. I'm gonna do it like it was a meeting, right? So I got
experience, strength,
and
hope.
A sponsor who has a sponsor. Back in old school, they were like, really, they had to do their credentials first. But I got sober April 27, 1997, in the town of Princeton, New Jersey.
Princeton, New Jersey.
Yeah, and it was definitely a different climate. I mean, this is pre-smartphone.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Was it pagers?
Wow.
It was right in that strange sweet spot between pagers and cell phones.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Where like no one had a cell phone, but pagers were already kind of played.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. And so it was back to just doctors having pagers and like super balled out yacht men having cells. But this was in the day, you know, still where they would pass the phone list around, you know.
Oh, wow. So you could sign it?
Everyone's signing these phone lists. And I remember being brand new, just having a gang of strangers just, you know, on the back of the brochure or whatever, you know, and then just the phone, the actual phone, you know, it was cordless. But
it was a cordless landline.
Wow.
But when they talk about
that,
you know, 300 pound or whatever, 20,000 pound phone.
Yeah.
Well, like, what does that mean? Because some people might not know
Well, the
what
idea,
that
they
means.
talk about the phone feeling heavy because it's so hard to pick up and make a call sometimes, to reach out for help.
Yep.
You know? And especially, we're talking about trauma. We're talking about generational trauma.
Yeah.
And the way that we internalize help, reaching out, being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm going to speak from my perspective.
Please.
As a man of color, as a man in the African-American community, as a Black man. It's thought of as weak. You are soft if you reach out for help in that type of a way. There's this sort of idea of you're supposed to already know everything, even though no one was there to teach it to you. You know? The idea of each one teach one was somehow governmentally eradicated. You know, I mean, each one teach one is sort of a Black Panther's ethos, and they were. Categorically, you know, sort of, not only were they categorically assassinated and dismembered and infiltrated, but then you have, you know, crack and people watching Snowfall, crack leak in. And so my sobriety, my recovery came on the heels, the death rattle of the crack epidemic. And the neighboring city, I grew up in Princeton, New Jersey. And the neighboring city was Trenton, New Jersey. And Trenton was, I mean, they would just call it Cracktown.
Yeah.
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 Straight up.
95 South.
Yeah. Yeah. You know it.
Oh yeah, those runs, baby.
It was Cracktown, and it was a very volatile situation where, I grew up in subsidized housing in Princeton. So the folks from Trenton would come and they would try to recruit us. They would try to recruit us into the, into the gang and to do the dirty work and to, and it got pretty brutal. And I got caught up in the gears of that, as a young man, raised by a single mother.
Yeah.
I had some privilege.
Yeah.
In that my mom was college educated and white lady. And so I feel fortunate in that she knew how to navigate systems. So when the time came that I needed to get into a rehab, she knew how to advocate.
That is a blessing.
That's amazing.
You feel me?
Yeah.
So I got into rehab, an adolescent treatment, like a bougie ass adolescent treatment center.
In Jersey?
In Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Like I'll shout it, whatever. Karen Foundation. Yeah, which is
Okay.
like, bro.
Like Club Med?
I mean, it was interesting. It's like, because
Betty
there's the Club Med.
Fordish or like
No, there's a Club Med shit. Okay, we'll talk about the rehab.
Okay, yeah.
Sure. And I have a tendency. Interrupt me and ask me a question
Well,
to ground me if you need. Because
I want to go
place.
back a little bit. Wait,
please.
pause on the rehab. What you
go.
said, because Angie and I were thinking about that as me coming from the hood, also single parent mother who was a hustler, doing all sorts of things, and we're prone to be preyed on for the drug life, for the street life, because it's redlining, the liquor stores in every corner. So it's like, do you feel like, and then for you and your experience, like you said, with the gang members coming at you, do you think that helped your alcoholism form, or like, was it natural, or did it make, you know what I mean? Did it, I don't know. Did it leave us like, what am I thinking? Like, did it,
Was it like did it fast track you?
yes.
Ooh, wow,
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
Y'all are a
That's
great
my love.
combo.
I know.
By the way.
My ninja.
Whoa, I love
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, so as far as I think it both ways, because there's me anesthetizing myself to feelings, to feeling like I wasn't hard enough, black enough, cool enough, good looking enough.
Yeah.
And the fast track of that fast life, putting pressure on you to show up in this glamorous, this flashy way.
Right.
No one lives up to that if they're being their genuine self.
Right.
Yeah.
No one is Nino Brown as their genuine self.
Preach.
Without, unadulterated, no drugs, no fast life, all
Yeah.
that shit. So for me, I did feel I'm now, okay, in order to be, not that I was that,
Right,
but in
right.
order to like even be in that game,
Right.
or to sort of not get bullied and shat upon, I needed to be fucked up all the time.
Yeah.
You see, and that's where the fast
Yes.
track begins. That's
Yes.
your ticket.
That's your ticket.
Because it is
Wow.
the fear.
Yeah.
Is it the fear? I mean, for me, I think I was scared because of like I was surrounded by Nino Brown types,
Yes.
like my mom being, with the hustlers and the drug dealers and the pimps who I was like, what? Okay. So, I found when I drank, I was like, whew, okay, I could take a breather. This is my magic juice. And this is how I can face this life, because no, I'm not a natural born hustler. I'm not a
Right.
killer. I don't want to shoot nobody. I don't want to be around shootings, but I was. So I had to drink even more.
Yeah.
It helped you create like a false identity that you needed to survive.
That's right.
Exactly.
But I do want to circle back to the part of not feeling black enough. Because I feel like all of, there's a thread
deep.
here.
That's a really deep one. In sobriety, I've had the opportunity to talk to so many different folks in the community, of all different, especially folks of color.
Yeah.
The darkest of the dark, coming from African roots, people from the Mississippi Delta, just all walks of black culture.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's always been this common thread of a pressure to feel black in a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
Whether it's
yeah.
coming from the black community, whether it's coming from greater society.
Yeah.
And for me, it was hard because, like, naturally as an addict, and I don't know, nurture, nature, whatever, but the gene was there. The oversensitive, the sort of over self-centered way of viewing the world as a young person. Even.
Yeah.
And so when the kids would make fun of me, black folks are making fun of black folks just all the time, just on some, recreation.
Yeah.
We talk our shit.
Yeah,
was
of
a sport.
course.
In some
Especially
ways,
in the East
it's a rite
Coast.
of passage on the East Coast.
That's what we
this
do.
is Jersey. But I didn't have the thick skin. You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I remember we had another dude. Shout out Jay Curtis, right?
Jay
You know
Curtis.
what I mean? Middle school, and he looked legitimately like white, but he was mixed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he would get picked on, but he could hang. He had a thicker skin.
Right.
So he would just kind of, he would laugh it off, or he'd joke back, or he'd find a way. And if it ever got too personal, too crazy, he would stand up for himself.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, my self-esteem was as such, whether it was through some of the trauma, growing up, or whether it was through, just my own, again, nurture nature.
Yeah.
Where I would take it so personally. I would shrink up. I would take it as like I get down on myself.
Yeah.
They would say, I remember playing basketball and this one's on Kyle's yellow grandma.
Oh my.
Oh man.
Yeah.
No,
That's the.
Shit like that.
Yeah.
Whenever I was in
Motherfuckers
Atlanta,
call me
they'd be like,
Bert.
yellow bone,
I
yellow bone.
I resonate with that.
They
Yeah.
call me Bert from fucking Sesame Street type shit 'cause he's yellow,
Yeah.
And like, wow.
Wow.
That's
Damn.
but the thing is, like,
I'm hugging little you.
oh,
Yeah.
Totally get that
I
because I went
appreciate
through that too.
Yeah, man. Yeah, they don't. Yeah.
Man.
recovery gave me that hug. You know what I'm saying? Folks like
Yes.
you, both of y'all are the folks that really helped me to sort of reclaim my identity.
Yeah.
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 Because when you feel that, when you feel like I'm not black enough, or or what have you, and in the other situation where you feel too black.
Right.
Right. It's that's you hit the nail on the head.
Well, that code switching, you know what I'm saying? Like code switching is a big
constantly.
deal. Like for me as well, being multi-race, my mom white European and my dad Jamaican and black. Like I was raised around black and Puerto Ricans though in Boston. So, and I was never ever, but because my white family, it was like I ain't like them. My black family, I felt so at home. But because I was lighter skinned, I would get hated on,
God.
shit talk,
Bro.
but boys like me. I got jumped. You know what I'm
God.
saying? Like
Yeah.
just wanted, I'm gonna slice your face because I'm pretty.
Yeah.
It's just, it was horrible. So I learned how to code switch.
Yeah, and I think that I also I fit in better. I was more approachable to white folks a lot of times than some of my black counterparts, who were not mixed, who were not light skinned. So it would be like maybe even some jealousy there on the black side. However, there were moments where I felt I'm too black for the situation. These jokes y'all telling, this vibe y'all have, I just didn't feel like I fit in the white world.
Right.
So sometimes you feel like you're not fitting in anywhere.
Yeah.
Accentuated with sort of the ism of self-centeredness, the ism of like sort of terminally unique, terminally, all that shit where I'm like, no one ever understands me shit.
Yeah.
Right.
We take it to the emo extreme of
The
it.
alcoholism, to be specifically,
that.
the alcoholism, because there's so
Yeah.
many isms, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we are alcoholics,
Oh my God.
and
Yeah.
we are like high functional, because we just strong. I know y'all. I mean, I feel like I know you already, Kyle, but
Oh,
you're
yeah.
a strong man, you know.
Yeah.
So like we have a high tolerance for pain.
Very
and you
high
touched on that
tolerance.
trauma, and like that's what have you been discriminated against in the rooms or?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Just touching back on the idea of the low self-esteem that does come along with this. That I've heard it described addiction and alcoholism as our natural state is having a superiority complex with a low self-esteem.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is such a strange dichotomy.
It is.
So strange.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm the shit or a piece of shit.
I love how we can literally recall that emotion just
Yeah.
because we
Oh, it's instant.
It's instant.
If, like coming into the rooms, brand new, hearing someone say, "I'm the piece of shit that the world revolves around."
Yeah.
That type of vibe. Like, if you're not, like, if you're fucked up, because I showed it in my first meeting, fucked up. You know what I mean? But if you actually have some clarity at all, and you hear that, that's just going to hit. If you're an addict,
yeah.
I'm sorry, but what was the question? I totally lost it.
Discrimination in the rooms.
rooms.
But this is all valuable.
this
This
is
is all.
this
It's
is
all
all-
poignant.
yeah,
You know,
this
it's
is all
all
poignant.
Yeah.
So my experience in the rooms, and when I first came in, the meeting was on the trailer park side of town.
Oh shoot.
And these were all bikers, a lot of which, not all bikers, but mostly bikers, a lot of which were in bike clubs that did not allow black people.
Yeah.
I didn't find that out till later. But, and so it's a working class white, and I'm like, and they would make jokes. Black jokes.
Racist jokes.
Oh, all kinds of shit. I mean, this was 97, man. You know what I mean?
Right. That's not that.
Nobody
long
was
ago.
catching them on no camera. You
Right.
feel me?
Taping them.
Blasting them on Twitter, what have you, with a hashtag that other people could.
Right.
This was like, okay.
Yeah.
And so for me, though, one of the things I had to learn, we talked about this a little bit after last episode. Since I've been engineering the episodes here as well for them.
Which you're doing an amazing job at.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's great to have y'all, man. To have recovery. So, having this business, the studio business, and then having recovery people show up.
Yeah,
that's
it's like such a breath. Of
when
fresh
Angie
air.
found the pink cloud studios, we joked about that in our first episode. What is a pink cloud? We love the name.
And I found it on Yelp. I was like, pink cloud.
I'm experiencing the pink cloud in the fourth year.
Oof, I mean, I feel like the pink cloud comes and goes. You know what I'm saying? And
Totally. But I didn't have none of that in the first 2 years.
No, so for some folks it's the beginning. For some folks it's later.
It's later.
But yeah, I mean, so the discrimination came, and it was interesting because, like, my first reaction is always, I don't fit here. Fuck these motherfuckers. They don't understand shit. No, these white, whatever. But fortunately, I had some guidance. I had a counselor. My mother, I'd like to circle back and just say the way my mother advocated for me, man.
What a blessing.
That's dope.
We had no money. And in 97, you could not get into a rehab as a minor unless you had like an active 5150, like right now.
Oh, wow.
Boom.
To get committed.
Like active. It's not like even if it was on your record in the past, it doesn't matter.
Wow.
It has to be active.
Wow.
So, or you had to, like quite a bag.
That just shows you the government's lack of care for mental health. It's like you got to be on the verge of death.
It's designed that way.
Yeah. Systemic psychosis.
It keeps our communities oppressed.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the biggest trauma that I dealt with when I was out there, when we touched on a little bit about anesthetizing and the fast life and the things that were going on. Well, the person who was sort of running shit, the Nino Brown of Trenton, if you will, was compared to Charles Taylor in the paper. Charles Taylor was a Liberian dictator for many, many years.
Oh, wow.
And he was also one of the people who most utilized child soldiers. Okay. This guy, what he would do, he knew that he was a smart motherfucker. He knew we had to sort of find a way to escape. So he would drug us. He would have people drug us, young people, and have us do the dirty work.
Damn. Right. I relate to that. That's crazy.
And so,
wait, what drug? What kind of drugs?
I mean, it was all kinds of shit. A lot of it was like heroin.
Damn.
And
like putting it. How did he put it in?
Lace
the
stuff
blunts?
with it, lace
the
and blunts.
Yeah.
Or like you just bumps of heroin, key bumps, whatever.
Instead of coke.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
I didn't find this out till close to when I decided I was going to get
So
clean.
you got popped. Like you got.
It was really wild, and so I would end up popped. What you mean, like?
So that's when I got. That's some East Coast. Like when you get popped, it's like you got turned on to addiction, not on purpose. Like basically, you like what happened to Gia Karanji was a model in the 80s. She thought she was doing cocaine and she ended up doing heroin. It killed her. She was the first model with AIDS in the 80s. And I mean, she was a white woman privileged, but like she was gay, she was queer.
Okay.
And she died a bloody, horrible death because nobody knew about AIDS. But her story was she thought she was taking coke.
I like that.
And
Popped.
she got
I
popped.
feel like New York popped is
shot.
Like shot.
either shot or arrested.
Right.
Yeah, so it's another
But
way.
I like
so,
that one.
yeah,
It's
it's
another way
another
to
like,
freak it.
oh, you got popped because that
You
same
know?
thing happened to me. I got popped. Yeah.
Well, and lending a voice to that, like, I mean, I think DMX came out on an interview and said basically the same thing happened to him.
Yes.
His mentor laced his blunt with crack, you know, and it sets off the, you know, the obsession, whatever it does.
Yeah,
But
it
it was
addiction-
crack too. They were lacing the weed with crack.
crack,
too.
yeah.
Heroin and as well. And so what would end up happening? I would be out of my fucking mind. Like I would be blacked out, you know, and they would just take you through in the car, and you would go through, and I would go into like, you know, stash houses or whatever the case may be. There's guns everywhere, and then I would come to, and it was almost like it was a dream, like it wasn't me doing it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I would come
Hell
to,
yeah.
and there would be like blood on my sneaker, you know, like, or I'd be
bruh,
like
man.
I'd have hands,
Yeah.
Wow.
and like, I mean, I'm sure
That
some of the
is
stuff I blacked out.
That is
Traumatic.
some major trauma.
But like, and I don't like to like, I'm not gonna go into like the
Yeah,
all
no,
the
no.
nitty gritty
No,
details
yeah.
of things that I've seen and done. But you know, on the heels of that was what I came into this room full of biker
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
white
Yeah.
dudes, and I knew I was gone. I knew that it was a wrap for me. I had to turn my back on the whole hood,
Street life.
and they all called me a snitch, and they death threatened
So
me out of my
dangerous.
high school. We went to everyone at the time. They said, we can't protect. This is actually after I got a rehab, but so we can't protect you. You need to just the fuck out.
Damn.
Get the fuck out, you know?
Yeah.
See, those are the layers that like black men have to deal with.
Yeah. That was me getting into rehab. That was
That's
me.
street code.
That was me, a young person getting into rehab, actually getting into AA, and then you know, and staying. Like people. So when I got in, and when people were calling me lucky, you know,
when you got into rehab.
Rehab, and then into the 12 steps. Thank
Okay.
you.
The rooms,
And you know, and people are saying you're lucky because you're young. I'm not that rich kid who got to go to the, you know, and even the rehab. This was the rehab that rich kids went to. My mom had to. She was friends with. She was a secretary at Princeton University, and she was friends with the head lawyer there, the head law professor, and she had done him many favors, and she had got him to threaten the insurance company.
Go off.
Yeah, go.
To
Shout
cover
out to your mom.
We
That's
like
amazing.
your mom, yeah.
the 25 days or whatever, you know, so not 28, you know, like you can't get the full,
You can't get-
whatever. But to get in there. So that's the advocacy I'm talking about,
Yes.
you know.
What
My
a
mom's white,
blessing.
so I knew that there was love.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That it's not all across racial lines, everything. But it was weird, and I didn't feel like I fully fit into the 12-step in the beginning because you know, especially these were just different types of cats.
Yeah.
But recovery for me, it somehow crossed that bridge. It bridged that gap, I should say. Before, I mean, I hated it in the beginning. I hated it.
Right,
My mother
right,
also
right,
had got me into a counselor who was like the bougie counselor in my town.
Oh,
And she did some weird fucking Jedi mind trick shit where she just, again, advocate. She came and said, I can't afford it.
Right.
I can't pay you anything. I need you to see my son twice a week.
Wow.
And later on, she became a mentor of mine. Later on, she was like, I will. Yes. You know, she's like, it was like a Jedi mind trick, you know? So, you know, yeah. And anyway, so I had that person telling me, you know what, you need to keep showing up regardless.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be dead.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's so important
So
because a lot of
important.
us don't. And you said something about being young. And when they say, you know, oh, you're so lucky you coming so young, that's a big topic too because, we're young, but like we went through so much. You as an older white person could look at me and be like, you're so young. You come. My life, I was born into trauma. I wasn't born with the privilege of being white. Yes, my mama's white, but I am black. My dad is black. I am not white passing.
100%.
And nothing about it. Just like the freaking Jim Crow laws. Like you talk about we 3/5 of man. So don't tell me I'm lucky. No.
Well, it's also, you know, there's a class issue here. Like I didn't grow up, you know, like, cause I also know some folks who, you know, black folks, and they had their own issues, you know, that were different than like a white person of that middle or upper class getting clean.
Yeah.
But it's also like their experience, you know, is different than mine. We are also diverse amongst us
Absolutely.
and ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so, but mine was pretty gutter, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying, in
yeah.
that regard. So it was not lucky, and we relate in that capacity, you and I.
Yeah.
The other thing that comes to mind for me is how hard it was to get into, you know, a rehab. I mean, bruh, like how easy it is to get into a jail as a minor, and how hard it is to get into
As
a
a black
rehab
man?
as a black man is, and actually it's quite the opposite for a young white
Of course.
woman, whatever.
Oh,
It is
young
way
white
easier to
person.
end up white. Thank you, individual. It is way easier for them to end up in a rehab than a jail.
Oh yeah, that's why they call. I mean, it just.
I mean, it's anecdotal, but I'm saying from what I've seen over 24 years of seeing people, you know,
Right.
in and out of recovery. Yeah.
That's why, I mean, jails are another form of slavery. There's a
Absolutely.
whole book about it, and it's just that speaks to that. That it's so, they make it so impossible for you to go get help, but you can go to, you know, do anything and you're gonna get the
That's
maximum.
modern day slavery,
Yeah,
you know, instead of
exactly.
in the fields, they're in penitentiaries.
Right.
They
Exactly.
would raid the block, and there would be white kids. Princeton has a white population, like robust,
Yeah.
wealthy white population, and then there's like these little pockets, right, where we are. you
Yeah.
know? And they will of course want to come.
Yeah.
I mean, we had culture, we had flavor, we had
Of
rhythm,
course.
we had
Right.
everything. You know
All
what I mean?
that.
They want our drip. They
Style.
want
Yeah,
our
they want-
sauce.
they want it-
Come on,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
And so they would come and then we would party, or we would go to their parties, right?
Right. They got all the drugs. My mama's.
I mean, what? And they would
Right.
raid the block, or the party, or whatever, and like there would be legal consequences for the children of color, and there would be mental health consequences for the whites,
So sad.
So,
and so
and
real.
that is so key.
and that's really powerful, you know. And so, okay, I didn't know any of this shit really. Like I didn't internalize that shit when I was 17 when I got
Right.
sober. you know?
Right.
I just had a mother who advocated for me, and a counselor who advocated for me, and a willingness to show the fuck up because I knew I was gonna die like Robert Hall.
Yeah, and you reached
And
that
that was
bottom.
my partner, Robert Hall. You know, and he got killed. You know what I mean? And we ran heavy.
R.I.P. Robert Hall.
R.I.P. Rob.
How old was he?
He was 18,
A
19.
kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I relate to that. So would you say that that gift of desperation, like that bottom, like, of course, because of that fast track of the street life
Yeah.
and getting, drugged and manipulated. Like I relate to that too. I was manipulated. I was dating 40-year-old men and I was 17 and I was running, like dating my friends, like the older drug dealers, you know what I mean? They would be having the little runners and who would go do everything. And they were putting ecstasy in our champagne bottles.
Right.
And I'm like, and turning us out, like, having like,
I'm like
robbing the Celtics, robbing the gun, like just gang banging shit, and all these we're just hella money, like. And I'm like looking back, I'm like, yo, I was 18 years old, and the boys were my age too, and y'all were in your 40s.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about like feeling. At one point, I felt like that was my protection.
What part?
The part where like I ran with street dudes.
Yeah.
I dated street dudes.
as long as he was one of the ones who
was the high ranking, that was a false sense of protection.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel, I'm going to open up a little bit on this because I feel a lot of still shame, especially hearing you talk about that stuff because, obviously, I was, my treatment of women as a young person, a young addict was absolutely shameful, and my mother, who wound up advocating for me and being my hero in this life. I was physically I was physically violent in order to get money from her wallet. You know what I'm saying? But also just my anger would go that way. I was raised in a misogynistic, almost like a femicidal. You understand? Like cauldron.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's been a big part of my recovery is working through those issues. And I think and the biggest part of those issues is the shame.
Yeah.
The way that I've treated, that I treated women when I was in those traumatic, that trauma that comes out and leaks upon itself, we leak it on our own community, So I when I hear you talk about that, and the experiences you went through, that comes up for me, and I feel nothing but love and respect for your journey, but also I'm like, man, like.
Well, thank you for that. And that's amazing that you have accountability because your amends is, to change that behavior.
That's right.
Accountability and awareness is the key thing for anybody to have the willingness to change. Yeah. And you as a man now, you can make different choices, and me as a woman now, my amends to myself, don't get drunk and high so I don't end up with these bad situations.
That's right.
But I feel like it does lend a voice to, this has been my experience is like, dating black men and then they go out in the world and, they're hustling and they're living this life and then they have no other option but to come home and bring it to you. Right. And that starts coming out in like, being physical, just living a certain type of life and the rage, the rage gets internalized and then it has to go somewhere. Yeah. Right. And being the closest person to that person, it's like, it's just a cycle of it's really
perpetuating that trauma because again they're the black people, not just men, because women too, black people especially, obviously men they're trying to be the dominant one and they're in the streets maybe taking whatever, but I know women hustlers and it's happened to me. So it's like it's across the board that we are dealt with going to jail and not with mental health situations.
That's right.
We don't have the tools, which we go back to talking about the tools of emotional regulation and like you were sharing about basically toxic masculinity, and having to just each one teach one, boss up, that's the street code, boss up, like man up, like what? Yeah. And so therefore, of course, the only emotion I knew was anger. And as a man with that testosterone and y'all doing violent things and you come home, I was beat by that. Like my mom's pimp, I was traumatized by that man she had living with us until I was from 3 to 10 years old. You know what I mean? Like it's horrible. Yeah. But my mom was traumatized, perpetuating her trauma. Right.
And that stuff dates back to slavery.
Yes.
It really does, man.
Yeah.
And each race, everyone has stuff. I'm not trying to I'm not here to play any kind of car. People sometimes want
Of course,
to come at you like this. Like,
yeah, we're speaking our
We're speaking-
experience.
I'm just talking
This is
about
the
this
truth,
here,
yeah.
you know. But I like to say that because people then they'll say, "Oh, people always want to go back." Once you bring up
Oh, yeah.
slavery,
God.
well,
Yeah.
something again,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it really does.
I mean, yeah.
You know?
But please,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
do
Really
your
gonna go back-
research.
go there
It's
again, you know?
systemic psychosis.
We and we never get to
Systemic.
discuss it. Like we never get to discuss it.
We were animals.
Yeah.
We were broken like animals. I mean, I don't know. You know, they say the Willie Lynch how to make a slave thing maybe fictional, but not. But the bottom line is it's sort of a sign of the times, right? It's what was going down.
Yeah.
Right.
We were being absolutely just shamed in front of each other and made to do violent things to each other and given the opposite of tools, given absolute, you know,
Yes.
and I mean just
Treated
the
like
level
animals.
and it's not talked about.
It's never talked
It's not
about.
talked about in schools.
No.
It's
none
not
of
talked
it.
about in churches.
No.
I mean, even in churches. I mean, even in black churches. I mean,
Yes,
you know,
unfortunately.
we'll touch upon it. We're not. It is so traumatic that who the fuck wants to even really talk about it? You know what I
Right.
mean, that's the thing.
Well, it's
Yeah.
that positive. Let's gloss over it, like that fake positivity, that spiritual bypassing.
It goes
Yes,
right to the
where
Underground
Jesus
Railroad.
saved
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
We're done. Yeah, we're done. You know,
It goes right from the middle passage to the Underground Railroad. Like,
Right.
And there's no in between.
What happened to the ocean in between the
Oh my
wave
God.
and the sand?
couple Kunta Kinte feet, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then Underground Railroad.
And then just straight there.
Yo,
No,
it's so
I-
real.
you know.
That is, yeah.
Well, breaking the chains
Mm.
again. I keep saying the systemic racism because, and I love the term coined. I forget who coined it, but systemic psychosis.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
powerful.
Because instead of like,
Oh, sorry. Go
they're
on.
not like what is it? White supremacy. It's white psychosis. You're not more supreme than us. We all did come from Africa, but guess what? We are all judged by our skin color, and I'm spiritual, and I would love to be like, we're all one. We're all one. Breathe. We're souls. Reality is we're judged. The Latinos, the Asians, all of us, you know, and I feel for all the kids in cages right now. Like I feel like the Latinos are going through what we went through, and
Yeah.
they're going through it now.
Well, and black people are still going through it.
Yes.
Right? We're being literally our bodies are being murdered and it's being filmed.
Yeah.
But circling back to the white psychosis, actually this psychiatrist was on it was a talk show with somebody and she was basically going into the whole psychology of it and calling it what did she call it? White psychosis, yeah. And the guy was like, this is a legitimate thing. She's like, yes, it's a legitimate thing.
Of course.
Like borderline personality disorder, like it exists. And it's, I mean, and she's like, I'm not giving them an out because I'm going to go in on them hard. But it's something that needs to be looked at because people are losing their lives.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think so with recovery, right? And in terms of the idea of, you know, because there's a huge problem here, you know, and we wear it, we carry it. And then how do we now find a solution? What are the solutions, right? And for me, recovery has been a wonderful way to deal. We talk about a spiritual thing. And it's so funny because, you know, you talk about 12 step coming from this white dude, whatever, in the 30s.
Oh yeah.
Right.
In the
Thanks, Bill and
30s.
Bob. Shout out to the founders.
Right. But I do think that in the same way that like Christianity, and I'm not a proponent of Christianity across the board, I'm not a Christian,
Right.
but the way that it has been used, especially by black folks, as a tool for change, especially in, you know, the civil rights era, et cetera.
Yeah.
You know, I think we can take these 12 steps,
Yes.
you know, and apply it to the community in that way.
Absolutely.
And make our own brand of the fact of the matter is we have not been empowered enough in this society. We have not been free enough in this society to be Bill and Bob's. You know, I mean, we
Speak on
we
it.
start to be
Speak
Bill and
on
Bob's
it.
and we get assassinated.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah. The minute you get
Hello, Malcolm X on our shirt, Martin Luther King. Like, I mean, even JFK, who was white, but he loved us, you know?
Fred Hampton.
We start to organize like a 12-step
Like a 12-step,
program.
yeah.
We get the, you know what I mean, the breakfast program, Panthers, and it gets dismantled.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
like with the
Yes.
quickness.
So what our only option is to do soul food with it. Is to
Yeah.
take the scraps of what, you know, the 1930s, you know, post-depression bootleg motherfuckers give us, which, and you know what, I'm going to say that 12 steps is scraps to a black person who grew up with all this trauma. That
Yeah.
is not full reparations and all
Not
this
at
shit.
all.
But you know what, we need to cook with this shit.
Yeah.
And we do.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I love y'all, man.
Yeah, I love you too. I love you too.
And then it becomes medicine.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
You know?
But wait, I want to really touch
Yeah.
on, because it's important, because it's when I started talking about trauma in the rooms, they'd be like,
Yes.
that's an outside issue.
Outside issue.
So like that's why with us, we
Okay.
wanted to make this podcast and be like, look, like listen, y'all, if you're sober and you're in these rooms and you're getting pissed off, because let me catch a resentment as a newcomer, I'm not coming back. And hearing all the gender, he, God, Lord, it's off-putting. I had to look at the positives and the similarities, not the differences,
Yeah.
but I had the willingness. And luckily, I went out 3 times. Luckily, I came back because I found people that look like me.
Yeah.
So like that part of like, yo, it's an outside issue. It's not.
Yeah.
Anything that makes me want to drink or use, hence racism, sexism, If I'm pissed the fuck off because all I know is anger, and I don't know the shame and the deeper, the
Right.
feelings of guilt and all of the subtleties of emotional intelligence, like that's gonna make me want to use. So there is no outside issue.
So this is an interesting topic, and I agree to an extent. Okay,
Please.
so
Yeah.
I think the tricky thing and where this can sometimes come to a head is when you're a newcomer, right? I'm a newcomer. I'm just putting this as a hypothetical, right? And so I do carry sort of my own shit that's coming from all this societal next level white psychosis, boom, whatever, right? And now I'm in a room that has been curated. Let's just talk about
Hell
12 seconds. It has
yeah.
been
Curated.
curated for white men.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
However, it also happens to be an incredibly effective method for me to get sober.
Yes.
Right.
Right. It's just true.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like the actual methodology. I mean, see, people like to take the sort of the mastery, interesting word, but or the maybe I'll update that word. They like to take sort of the credit, the merit out of brilliant white people's whether they're discoveries or creations at times because they're white. You know what I mean? And I get it. But Einstein fucking discovered relativity, and of course there was privilege and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But he did, and he was a brilliant ass dude. You know,
Right,
I'm gonna give credit where it's
For sure,
right. So I'm gonna
for
give credit in terms of the formula, in terms of
Yes.
Bob, Bill, whatever. It is that formula of the 12. That shit. You know what I mean? I called it scraps, but they're brilliant ass scraps.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's the foundation.
Okay. So these motherfuckers do know. If there's one thing they do know, when I walk into this room and I'm new, it's how it's more about how to get clean, how to get
Yes.
sober. than
Yes.
me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so here's where it gets tricky, I do believe.
Yeah.
Now, ideally, I would walk into a room, right, and it would be folks who look more like me, who have more similar experience, et cetera, that we could deal with our traumas. They've been through the trauma and been to the other side in a more one-to-one way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That's not the case. It was not. It's becoming more the case, and now it's because of folks like y'all, which I fucking.
Well, because the pandemic and the BIPOC meetings online, you know what I mean? That's why, because it hasn't been my story.
That's
Unless,
how we
like,
all connected.
Yeah.
You know. Like,
Unless in New York, the meetings are more mixed. In
Yeah.
Hollywood, it's like edgy and tatted, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
still like 3 black people in the room, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
Right. That like the fact that you can count them is
And we all look at each other and give each other the nod.
The
Like,
nod,
okay,
yeah.
cool. I feel safer.
Yes.
when there's
Yes, and among black folks, I feel better having this conversation.
Yeah.
Being like,
Yes.
hearing you say, not an outside issue. Like among black folks,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's where I want this. That's where I want this to come up. I'm not ready right now to go to a meeting as a newcomer or have a newcomer in a meeting. I want as a newcomer, I want to be able to just like learn.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
that's where it gets tricky, I think,
yeah.
because we
Yeah.
know how to wield whatever the fuck we need to wield as addicts
Yeah.
to disqualify ourselves.
Oh,
so I
for
also
sure.
want
Right.
to encourage if you're a young person of color or what a person of color in general, and you are only surrounded by white people, not only are there life preservers in
Yeah.
online in terms
Yeah.
of the BIPOC meetings
Right.
Yeah.
and the beautiful things that y'all. I mean,
Facebook groups.
Facebook groups. There's a lot out here. So
Yeah.
I'm saying, but if you do have to be the only person of color, the token black,
token
Yes.
black.
in the meeting,
Tokenized black,
you can
token
still
black.
get sober. And I'm a
course.
witness, and I've seen
Yes.
some other folks. But
We did it.
Yeah, I did it.
Yeah.
You did it.
We did it.
You did it. And I think that like it's important because there are a lot of people I see newcomers that are like, oh well, the shit was too racist, I can't fuck with it.
Right.
I'm like, bro, how about this one? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How about being in a white trailer park watching Mike Tyson bite off Holyfield's ear,
Oh, Lord.
right, with a bunch of racist whites,
He
and
took
they
it
love
there.
me. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they love me. because the recovery piece does transcend.
And this is no diss on white people
does.
either, because I can't, like, we're talking about our part and our side, but it's like the fact of what my point is, because in the traditions it says AA as a whole, or sorry, I said AA, 12 steps as a whole, has no opinion.
Right.
So as individuals, I can speak my truth and my story. I'm not going to be in there and be like, yo, F, Trump, F this, whatever, get all like political and stuff. But like racism, like, is my exact experience.
I do not disagree with, from a traditions point of view, et cetera, like outside issue. That when I hear someone say outside issue,
right,
in that situation,
and they weaponize it.
When they weaponize it, it can go two ways.
Right.
Again, if it's like if you're a newcomer and you want to like start like a AA kind of like social, sort of revolution, I would want to say to you, like, just like keep coming and like get sober first.
Or even like more importantly, if a newcomer comes in the room, which I've seen this happen, and thank God I was there to go up to that person and being like, look, I just dealt with this, I had this, my boss is racist against me, I just want to drink, and now I've got the sexually assaulted outside issue.
Right.
I want to punch that guy in the face because she had the audacity and boldness, that person, to come in the room and share her fucking truth. So it's not an outside issue.
I don't want that. Sorry, you go.
No, I'm sorry. That was my experience.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, to touch on that point, I remember telling my therapist that, and she's like, the rooms aren't for that. Not that they're not for that. Again, we're towing a fine line here. But like,
I love the passion.
Yeah. So we're so passionate, y'all. We care.
She was like, and then we went back to, like, I think Bill W, right? Like, they weren't even, black people had to sit outside, right? And then she's like, we're just getting to a place where they don't want to hear about that. And maybe it's not the place. That's why you have me, right?
That's it.
You get to call me and unpack that with me, and then you get to unpack that with the community.
Yes.
See, that's the thing. I think again, I have a couple thoughts, and one is that, like, that's whack. Like, I would never be the, like if I'm even right and someone is on some outside issue shit, it's a different thing, let's say. Like, to just be like, outside issue, shut the fuck up,
Right.
That's not my steez.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There are some brands and flavors of recovery that are
More
like
of
more
old-timer,
outspoken,
old-timer
old-timer style.
I actually was kind of reared in that a little bit, you know what I mean? Where motherfuckers was like, yo, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. You knew.
Right.
And
which used to work back then, but not now. Like, I don't want you to, like, the whole point is you have a voice. I want you to use your voice. Like, I get it, put the cotton in your ears and your mouth or whatever. Like, dude, this is not 1950. This is 2022
and
pretty much.
As black women, we come into the rooms silenced.
Yes, speak on it.
Our abuse silenced us. Our bodies didn't belong to us. So we're sharing that experience in the hope of, and it's interesting because at that meeting, the only 4 black people all cried. Because they all had an experience
being
with
shut up in that.
That and abuse. And it being very linked to, their alcoholism. And then the guy from the back had to have a outburst, outside issue. And I was like, yo, just
like, bro, don't get beat up.
And I get it.
Luckily, like, we're healing, because we would beat you up.
But which is real. But I also want to say that, like, this shit, like, when I came in, and it was like that. Maybe I'm just like
you're an old timer.
Now I'm bitter old timer shit.
2021, bro.
These
Come
kids
on.
are soft. But like, when I came in, they would say some harsh shit, and for me it was like, bro, I want this recovery. You're hard. I don't give a fuck what you say. Say outside issue.
Right.
Please.
And proof is what works for you doesn't work for everybody.
It doesn't. I know.
You know what I'm saying?
You're right. But I still want to. I still want to speak to what I do believe is the spirit of, like, willingness at times, where it's like, and I want to say this to folks: do not let.
Yes.
You understand?
Don't let.
That's why I'm trying to say this. I'm not trying to say I'm better because I did that.
No.
I'm saying,
No, that's
do
the
not
message.
let an asshole
Yes.
who's screaming outside issue, who's saying some shit. Do not let them prevent you from getting your motherfucking recovery.
Right.
Ashe.
Show the
Find
fuck
a
up.
new meeting.
Find a new meeting, or find people in that meeting that you can vibe with.
Right.
And take the power out of this motherfucker.
Both.
Exactly.
And,
Shift the focus.
all of the above.
All of it.
I mean, remember when you had that incident with
oh Lord.
it was and I saw you actively avoiding him.
Yeah. So I had this is a good one. Like, I'm sorry.
No,
go ahead.
on. I'm done.
So a person said to me, a white man was like, and I have a Boston accent or whatever. And at the time, it depends on when I talk to my family, it's thicker or not, like Boston and New York. And he was like, I thought I thought only white trash had Boston accent. I've never seen a black girl with a Boston accent.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about? He was like, only piece of shit's like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Scumbags have Boston accents or whatever. And he was like, you know, you're black. And he was like, and I forget exactly how he broke it down, but he was just like, I don't understand. Or he was trying to connect with me, but in the meantime, saying so much racist shit.
Right. And
You know?
tricky.
and actively admitting that he was a recovered racist.
And that's in the same conversation.
Like,
I was like,
wow.
he said something. I was like, that's kind of racist, right? And he was like, oh yeah, I was racist back in Boston, but I'm not anymore. And I was like, bro, what? Like,
It's interesting.
Yeah.
That is that was par for the course for me. You know what I mean? In my recovery experience. So I'm talking about, it really was. And like, I think in the beginning, it was, you could get me. You know what I mean? You could get me a lot.
Yeah.
Like, you could say some shit and like, I'll be like, call my sponsor some shit. And whether it was
sensitive.
race, whether it was,
Sensitive.
we are. And I do think that one of the things over time, you know, with recovery and with working on myself and with like working on these traumas and healing these traumas, and helping other people heal these kinds of traumas, is that like I can take things lighter. I cannot make it about me and like put it on you. You know what I mean? In these moments and kind of like, and I love how you were just kind of just, hey, you know, you ain't come at him double barrel. You're like, you're racist, right? Like,
that was my first reaction, but then like I resented him, and then I had to like
that's the
avoid him at meetings, and then it took a long time, and then he kept trying to talk to me, and he said some other shit that was way more offensive, but I just blocked it out, and I was just like, and I told my sponsor, and it was just like I had to stop going to those meetings, and then because of that, I kind of started hating the whole meeting because it was a bunch of white men, patriarchy. But I got sober in that meeting, and these are allies. Some of them, you know, some of them are not ex-racists who want to be sexist and only tell story like the feminine, like just stories that are just like, bro, get off your soapbox in some of these meetings. Has nothing to do with recovery. Stop trying to make me laugh because you're not even funny. But you got you know what I mean? You know those people in the meetings that just want a reaction, right? To feed their ego. But there are a lot of allies, and those there are white people who help save me, you know.
Right.
I love them, and I'm part white. Like, I don't hate white people, but I'm talking about my experience and how I'm so glad that now the language and the diversity is being like, everything has a big magnifying glass on it. All the racism was like a silent hum. Now it's a fucking loud scream, you know, and you're no longer allowed to do that because guess what? There's social media. You will get filmed.
Oh, there's a lot of pushback. There's no, you know, you ain't going, you can't say the shit you could have said, you know.
But to piggyback off what you said, because I think that this is really important, as a person that came in with no space between getting triggered and appraising it, right? Like thinking it was happening in real time. What really helped me was when I would go to places with my sponsor, right? And she had 11 years and some like janky shit would like
go down,
would go down, and she was like, she stayed sovereign. Like nothing took her outside of herself. Right. And she was like, this is sobriety. You know, like you just show up and you do it, and all you basically what she said too was like, identify your goal and then hone in on that. So if your goal is to get sober, all these people are going to trigger you. But it's like, how do you come back to yourself, you know, and not allow that to be your ticket out.
And I learned that. I learned that like these folks, you know, they will help me get sober.
Right. Yes, they will.
And sometimes even like having to show up to a meeting where, you know, if it's one person, if the whole meeting's just, there's meetings that are really sick. You know
yes.
what I mean?
Oh my God.
Yes.
Right?
One guy actually, I remember my first 90 days was like, this is not the hotbed for mental health.
No, I remember. I've heard that
my
too.
God.
But you know, more often than not, there are some sicker than other folks at a lot of meetings, and someone's going to rub me the wrong way, and having the opportunity to learn how to coexist with folks who I fucking can't stand is also, you know, can be an important lesson in sobriety too. So, you know, it's like it's finding the gray areas. It's you know, as well.
Well, working the steps. Finding the tools.
The tools and unpacking that thing that we talked about in the beginning of like what it looked like to be tough, right? And having to protect ourselves. So like letting that down, like letting that the conditioning go. Like not everybody's out to get me. I don't have to like, you know, just pop off at any point. Like
we're talking about trauma and
trauma
No, you're right.
It's like it takes
you
years.
You have such a good point with where your perspective on this.
Yeah.
And I think part of me is like, yo, I had to do this shit like this so other people should, which is not right. You know what I mean? It's
That's
like
cool. That's your
but
perspective.
it is. Also because I value my recovery.
Yes.
I have valued my recovery enough to like make sure that I, you know what I mean, that I fight for it throughout this time, throughout a decent chunk of time. It doesn't make me better than anyone else.
Right.
But like it does make me have some, you know, a extensive amount of experience, and I think that like part of me is concerned that like newer generations in this era, and this is making me sound like such a fucking old. Like,
Look at this old timer. Go ahead,
but like
boy.
that newer generations will allow things that I think we need to rise above.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You know, to take them out or to ostracize.
Yeah.
To expand.
Ostracize them, you
to
know.
expand. Like,
Yeah.
but look, what works for you is amazing, and like that's why I thank God. It's a miracle, and also it's kind of a curse because we get this program through other people who are just recovered sick people.
That's right.
Or recovering. Hopefully,
Right.
if they're still
Hopefully.
working
Hopefully.
a program. So like, thank God I went out because on the 4th step, it's like I had a part in my trauma, and my sponsor at the time didn't have the language to tell me, look, you didn't have a part in what happened to you at 7 years old. Besides now at 35 or whatever, 33, you're perpetuating that pain. But when I take women through the steps, I can be like, look, those defects are like defenses. Like I have a more gentler way because I went through that. And that part, you had no, fuck those perpetrators. You had no part besides it's 30 years later and you still hate all men and you hate yourself and you're harming yourself.
Right.
I harmed myself and I got to let that go. It's not serving me anymore.
Yeah.
That is a mind-blowing difference between your part and your rape. Bitch.
Yeah.
Fuck you and
Yeah.
fuck AA.
And I think that's very.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Oh, I love how you said that.
Yeah.
No, you know, and it's like, wow, you know, I think that's so important for people to be able to internalize that AA or any 12-step entity is not the end all be all for your mental health.
Yes.
You
Yes.
feel me?
Yes.
Like I've heard y'all talk about it on the past
All
episodes.
the tools.
Therapy,
The therapy.
you know, all the different tools that are not, you know, 12-step meetings, because you're going to hear some fuck shit in 12-step meetings.
Oh my God, that's the fuck shit hotbed.
Yeah.
You're going to hear some great shit,
Yeah,
but you're going to hear some fuck shit.
Yeah. And I think that like when we go outside and do that work, my experience has been that the thing that triggers me teaches me. Right?
Oh,
I'm no longer like
Oh, yes.
like I mean even not to get too into it, but you know, when your ex-girlfriend kind of triggered me, right?
Yes.
And it wasn't what it was on the surface. It was she reflected back to me a really toxic relationship I had with a cousin of mine, right? And so, you know, going to my sponsor and going to therapy, and they were like, something's being set off here and you have to work through it, and these are the defects and this is what you default to. So it provides deeper healing, and then you can go to the rooms and just focus on carrying the message, hearing the message, and helping the newcomer.
You were working your ass off though. Like that's, I think, a deeper level of like what you spoke on with the willingness. Like you come in here, you really got to want to change.
Yeah.
Nobody can want it for you because you're gonna be met with all of the weapons of war. You know, the hate, the racism, the sexism, the patriarchy, the all of this or whatever. You know, but it's up to me to be willing to look within myself and be like, okay, this is my shit, my part. Like you were accountable and you knew that's deep.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned in the last episode, I love that I can reference that.
Yes. What can we mention?
I'm gonna shout out Pink Cloud Studios again because it's, you know, it's my
Pink
place.
Cloud Studios.
You know, but and of course, revolutionary Addictdotes. You know, what I mean, we here with it. But you mentioned in the last episode that the idea of alchemy, which is one that I've also really enjoyed. The idea of spiritual alchemy, the idea of emotional alchemy, of taking the shit in situations and alchemizing it into gold. And I think that is such I think it's a really powerful concept. You know?
Yes.
And I think in whether it's a social situation, a work situation, a life struggle, you know, that's to me in some ways the pinnacle of what this recovery gives us the ability to achieve. 100%. And we're not going to be able to achieve it in every single moment, you know, but even in like long-term trajectory, you know, to be able to use our trauma to help someone else.
Yes. That's what
that is like
I mean, that is everything.
That is the goal, and that is the goal that allows us to then get out of our own heads,
Yep.
and and that's
And
anyway.
that's real wealth.
Yes.
Right? Like
Yes.
that is real wealth. Like nothing can top that. Living in purpose like that, on purpose.
Breaking those generational curses.
Yeah,
The
just-
pause, like learning to pause. Like I heard, like pause, please assist until serenity enters.
Ooh, I haven't heard that one.
I haven't heard that one either.
Pause, like
Please
please
assist
assist until serenity
enters.
enters. And what is assisting is my power to be an alchemist, the higher vibration of the universe. If you don't, I can say, God, I want to be universal here. The universal power, spirit, ancestors, angels, the ocean, like the higher force, the gravity, like please assist until serenity enters. Like that pause. So then I can go leave and alchemize whatever that is being triggered within me. Because if I just react, if we're reactory, like, white people weren't taught, like black people, people of color, like we react. We're so emotional. Like white people often just stuff and keep going. Go get those A's, Tony. Go. You know what I mean?
Tony.
Go get those A's.
Why
Go
you had
to
to close
they got
Tony?
the organizational.
Tony,
You know what I'm
that
saying?
went
Like,
to the expensive rehab.
Exactly. We don't have that. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I was taught my emotions, unfortunately, ran my life.
That's
right.
And
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not a winning program.
Yeah, that's right.
Emotions are valid, but they're not always real.
Yeah, you're right. And learning how to kind of feel a feeling, let it have its life, but not let it control, let it pass.
Yes.
Right.
Not make decisions based on it in that heat of the moment.
Yes.
So important. And it makes us, in some ways, it makes us portable.
Yeah.
We can go
Yes.
different, you know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
actually like adapt to different
Flexible.
environments.
Yeah.
That's been a huge thing for me. And I mean, that's been, aside from being able to achieve close friendships, successful work relationships,
Yeah.
and networking and things like that, and creative connections. It's also allowed me to do cool shit like travel,
Yeah.
but not on some like I have a shit ton of money and I'm going to like the resort,
Right.
but like to like kind of be on the ground, like and go, shoestring budget, not sure where I'm,
Yeah.
where I'm gonna end
Balling
up
on a
vibes,
budget.
but knowing how to navigate.
Yeah.
Like that builds. It's. I mean, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's like.
Because I'm hangry right now and I'm in Kampala, Uganda, and I know that like
Exactly.
if I'm gonna make the next jaunt, the next trip on a 5-hour bumpy bus and on a dirt road, I better make sure I get some food in me.
Yes.
Right.
That
right.
halts. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. You better pause.
I better find some
Halts.
hold pause.
Right.
Hold
Pause. Hold pause.
I better get to some Wi-Fi
Oh,
or
yeah.
or I better make sure I have a SIM card.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because even in
SIM
third
card.
world developing everything, you'll find a SIM card.
Wow.
Right.
Shout out
Yeah.
Akon, who like basically
Oh,
made
man.
that happen.
Oh
for
yeah,
Africa.
yeah. But I do. This brings up
Call my
actually a really
sponsor. Yeah.
interesting point. So, as you're talking, I'm thinking of you had mentioned that you were able to do a workshop in Liberia.
Yeah.
And I feel like because in the beginning you did liken what your experience was, right? Like it was it was kind of basically more. I don't want to say child soldier, but more or less. And I think that's the beautiful thing of recovery.
Yeah,
You know,
I will go close to say child soldier. It wasn't
Yeah,
quite, I wasn't doing what the folks
Street
that
soldier.
Street soldier.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
good,
it wasn't to the degree that was going on in Liberia.
Yeah, Liberia's hectic.
American version.
But it was the U.S. Trenton, New Jersey version, and it was and a smaller scale. But that was something that really spoke to me.
Right.
I got to go out to Liberia, and the profession I chose and was free enough to be able to choose and build a career around was being a touring slam poet. And we created a group called the Mayhem Poets, and we got to go everywhere. And what resonated the most, I think, was this, we were all dudes, but two of us black, one white, and multicultural, being able to sort of go into schools or go into regional theaters and have schools get bussed in. It got to the point where it took off, and we had 2,000 kids, and perform sort of culturally relevant stuff. A little bit of that broccoli, but also some sugar with good flows, and, interesting vibes, punchlines.
Yes.
And then also do workshops and go to different communities, right? And so we got to go and I learned how to workshop through 12-step meetings.
Yeah.
That's a workshop.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
For cheesy.
And that's alchemy.
Yeah,
Like
right.
that's where we get to take, what we've learned in 12 steps, the structure of it, and apply it to help others heal.
Yes.
It really is,
Yes.
you know, and so I got to go to places like Edmonton, Canada, right? And which is at the time had, you know, the biggest sort of First Nations
First
populations
Nations. Oh my gosh.
in their school district, and they were clashing with the white Canadian, the Caucasian Canadian population, and we got to work. There had been fights and issues. We got to go in. They hit us up. You know, they knew that we did this type of workshop work, and do some sort of poetry, slam, emotional release combination, and it was so moving to me.
I mean,
to
that's
see
so
this community.
Yeah. Were any of them, just side note, were any of the First Nations people in active addiction?
I mean, this was middle school kids, so
Yeah.
I'm sure some of them were. I'm sure
Right.
most no, but you know,
yeah,
Still
it's a
hitting
big-
well.
most of my middle school cohorts were, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But I know that like they didn't feel encouraged to have voices.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And I
yes.
remember we had one young person, and I thought I had them speak in front of everyone, and she was shy, you know, and she didn't want to say that. She said a few words and then cried. And I thought, and this was part of like the big expose, you know what I'm saying? And I thought, oh my God, like we're never gonna get invited back here. We just like ruined her life. And then at the end, she said to her teacher, "It's nice to have a voice, eh?" With that Canadian, eh? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's alchemy.
Yeah.
Right?
Like that's just.
So that was so valuable. And so then when I got the call to go to Liberia, and do work with ex-child soldiers, it was just like, wow. I mean, these are people who really went through.
Yes.
No, I went through it.
Yeah.
But I mean, these are people. Some of these individuals that I work with had been drugged and had killed their own families.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's
You know,
It's torturous.
That's deep.
That's awful.
and so that was like a really and I mean, I wept like multiple times. It was like, in some ways, it was just so humbling because I thought that you know how we hold on to our own experiences,
yeah.
like it was the you know the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
the
Like
movie.
it was the one.
story. Yeah.
Well, then the PTSD, and then there's CPTSD. You know, the complex.
complex
like, then there's
part
so
of it.
many different levels to it, and learning the difference. And honestly, our trauma is incomparable because like what's a monstrous volcano to me could just be a hill to someone else, but it's my volcano.
Right. It is. But what was so important to me was to see to have both.
Yeah.
To have my volcano, to have gone through it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But then to go here and see, oh my God, like in the context of everything, I do get perspective.
Humbling.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was humbling, and just weeping and seeing them go, you know, talk about, you know, just that we did freestyle exercises.
Yeah. Oh,
and they
so dope.
and
I love this.
Yeah.
and that's what they said. They said that these kids love, you know, Jay-Z at the time. They
Yeah.
loved 50 Cent at the time. So I was trying to use 50 Cent's flow, these freestyle exercises, and they would start talking about shit and it was I thought it was I was afraid. I was like, they're talking about having killed their parents while rapping and shit like that, like
That's their story.
almost braggadociously. But the therapists there, because it was an NGO, dope NGO, actually Liberian run, and they said no, this is what it is. This is what we need,
This is
because
big.
they're crying after that.
And they're
Bragging about having killed their parents in a
Right.
freestyle when they're crying.
They're
after.
crying.
feel
They're
that.
unpacking
I
it.
feel that
Like,
in my heart. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
because there's nothing more powerful than doing it that way,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
for example, I mean, I'll speak to just really quickly. When I was just in traditional therapy, like I didn't really get real until year 5 into it, right? But if it was done through another way, like creatively, where I could, you know, write a poem or express my pain in a different way, it would have been so much more effective.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, important is people's reaction to grief, to trauma. It's not always logical. It doesn't always fit what you think should be the situation. Like, again, these
emotional
kids
and spiritual.
bragging about it, but then crying afterwards.
Yeah.
So the way that it comes up, you may be at a funeral and start laughing,
Yes.
right? Well, from social, that's really inappropriate. You know what I'm saying? But maybe that's the way that you internalize that the trauma came out, and then later on you're crying. So I think it's also
Yeah.
important to realize, like, wow, the myriad of ways that emotions
yeah.
can manifest in us and come out.
Definitely, yeah.
And as long as we're not physically harming folks, you know what I'm saying? There's room for us to like actually grow from it in that way. I mean, physically harming you can grow too, but I'm saying like you physically harming, that's when you're crossing a line where
Of course.
Yeah, that's where it gets.
And you said it like it's important because we can't intellectualize spiritual growth. Like you said, it's not logical. Like that's such also a key, I think, fucking punchline, because a lot of times people will just intellectualize someone's healing or someone's recovery or the 12 steps, in fact. Like I've dealt with very intelligent people, but they just can't get it because this is a spiritual program. I'm like, pause. Like prayer could be affirmative action. It could just be affirmative words. If you don't believe in a deity or whatever, you don't just believe in a dog or yourself. But if you're like, well, that scientifically doesn't work. And if you're intellectualizing it so much, you intellectualize yourself right out of the rooms, right out of recovery.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's the beauty of sponsorship, right?
Yeah.
You get to work with somebody else, like you got to work with those kids, and there's no language for what you feel.
No.
There's no language seeing somebody else heal like that.
Right.
You know, the lights to come on, and I mean, it's
Powerful, man.
And you talked about the shame too, and I don't know, I feel like we might be running out of time soon, but I love this. It's a shame we can't forget our troubles the way we forget our blessings. Right? Like it's a shame, like that forgetfulness, right? You know, like that's a big deal. But for you and what you spoke on, like I would love to ask, where are you now within the shame that you carry about what your previous actions were with women? Like has that changed now, like in your relationships?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that's so powerful was, you know, witnessing my mother's passing and being present for it. You know, my hero died of cancer 2006. And being able to, first of all, make amends to my mom while she was alive. And just be her son. Read bedtime stories with her. You know, hear her talk about some of her own troubles and things like that growing up. As a woman, as a single mother. You know, like actually listen. Throw her a surprise, you know, a birthday party with all of her friends, her female friends that she, you know, really embrace my mother and how she, so that was huge for me. And it's like, because I have this conscience, because I have this connection to my mom, and then her passing, that was a huge part. And for a while I wanted to almost, it's like, you know, we're addicts, man. So, you know, for a while you go the opposite direction. You want to erase it, you know, so you know, sex and love addiction comes in. Because one of the phases of grief is anger. I was angry at my mom for dying, you know. But because she's the one who saved me and she's the one who, you know, I feel like loved me, you know what I'm saying, the most unconditionally. I've been able to do a lot of work in therapy, you know. I've been able to work with, you know, my, like not only like my own self, but work with other young men. I was a school counselor in Oakland.
Oh wow,
that's dope.
For a year, and I mean, obviously a lot of, as they say, toxic masculinity, a lot of, you know, sort of like machista culture, misogynist culture, and help young men, especially, work through their own issues around that. You know? And again, because like I say, you know, you don't keep unless you give it away. I was able to give. I got paid. It was, but you know, I was giving away that information. And in relationships, man, like I'm just not trying to, you know what I'm saying, like I'm just not about any type of disrespect in that way. You know what I'm saying? Like I just have an aversion to it now. You know.
So mean you swung to the anorexic side, or like?
You know, I think that for a while I was like more on the anorexic side of it. Now I'm like, I think I'm happily in the middle. Like I can enjoy myself. I can enjoy, you know, in terms of relationships, I can enjoy play.
Play is such a good word.
You feel that? Like sense of humor.
You know, taking yourself lightly.
Being authentic.
Take it lightly. Keep it light.
Keep it light, but then switch gears when it's necessary. You know what I mean? And sometimes you're when you're keeping it light, when you're playing, you hurt someone's feelings. And that's an important thing for me as a man to know. Because, you know, we play and it's like, but we all have our like our stuff, our triggers, or whatever you want to call them. And sometimes you're gonna press a button. And let that person have their reaction. Don't get defensive. You press the button. You know what I'm saying? And you were playing and you press the button, and now you know that's a button you got to be careful about. And that's okay too. There are other individuals who will hold you emotionally hostage, and I've learned that too. So in my anorexic side, right, in my side of like, well, I don't want to play. I'm just going to be, you know, I'm going to be Danny Tanner out here in these streets. I mean, that's the right word, but you know what I'm saying? Just vanilla as fuck out here in these streets.
Danny Tanner,
you feel me? Like no conflict.
Let's get back to Danny Taylor.
If you're going to be in a relationship, you're going to have conflict. You know? Just no conflict averse. You know, that also did not work out for me. You know, because then I was privy to be held emotionally hostage and be on eggshells.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. And that's going to come out sideways.
Yeah.
Right.
So for me now, it's like, it's finding that balance. It's reaching that gray area of, okay, like we can play and like, oh, okay, I'm playing too rough. You know what I mean? And, and I need to respect that and not try to justify or mansplain why I'm playing. Why that's too rough. You know what I mean?
Good. That's
that's dope.
Yeah,
And I, as you're talking, I'm thinking about like how powerful it is to be able to change ourselves, right? Like in relation to relationships, right? Coming from a house where my mother and father needed to be done early in childhood. I mean, in my childhood, and to see it play out, like the toxic, the defensiveness, the selfishness, all of that, and entering the rooms and being able to unpack all that stuff, and have potentially a healthy, connection with somebody, because all that stuff is like you see it now.
Yeah, I think I do want to. I feel I would be remiss if I didn't bring up something about sex, right? Because that there's so much.
That's a big part of that.
That goes on in that, and how are we aroused, and like, well, if you have trauma around your arousal versus if you're able to like find a way to enjoy some junk food sex, where there's role play or there's what I mean. There's fun and play. Again, play being a great word. But then there's also safety. Right. And there's also like, oh, now I'm getting too hooked on this role or this energy in sex. How do I recalibrate? Learning how to do that, because for me, and that was I got into I got the 12-step program in that world, the SLAA, whatever you want to call it. In the beginning, again, the anorexia is the thing. It's like I can't. Oh, this has to. We can only be tender missionaries.
And this is gonna be a whole nother sober sex is gonna be a whole.
Y'all get into that. A whole nother.
That's deep.
And trauma is all up in that. But bottom line is, I just want anyone who feels like, oh, it's over. Because you're needing to take some space from it and recalibrate. Trust me, like it's still a playground out here. You still have a great time.
and that you can get back to your true essence, right? Like
there's hope.
Your own sexuality and like being comfortable with it, and then being able to dismantle all the things that kind of got in the way with that.
That's right.
And like really cultivate something with someone that's beautiful. Right. And it's not like you have walls. What did Laura say? She was like, there's a difference between walls and like a gate. Right? And then you get to let people in, and feel safe. Like, how beautiful is that? There's nothing more beautiful.
It's amazing. It's a blessing, and it's a miracle, really, coming from no safety to now being safe. It's my experience too, and it's like
on all levels, whether it's sex, whether it's whether it's friendships, love.
All of it.
That's that alchemy.
I thank you so much. This has been such an amazing episode. I want to know, is there anything? Well, okay, so for something that you would say to someone coming in, getting sober, and like, I don't know, what would you want them to know?
I just one of the things that I was told when it really sucked. Sometimes it's gonna suck, right? Let it suck. It's okay for it to suck. It'll get better. But there's no way to like warp zone your way past it. Just let it suck, and it'll get better.
For me, as big sobriety has been the willingness to sit in the uncomfortability. Like, it's uncomfortable good. You're growing. Stay. I heard stay when I was in a Brooklyn meeting, and I started saying it in my first year for a long time. I had to restart saying it soon because, at 4 years, it felt like I was healing and shit, didn't need it no more. And I was like, no, bitch,
stay. Because you'll ultimately find like your community, and then that births a whole new life. Like you just kind of are escorted into this life where everybody's operating on another plane. Everyone's trying to be their highest self, right? And so you're not even like in that old life anymore where you were maybe I don't like the word lower self, but lower self.
Lower self with lower companions.
Exactly, lower companions.
Now we are here with our higher believing mirrors. So I thank you so much. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap it up, Angie?
No, I think that's kind of it.
Well, Kyle, you are a gem.
I love y'all.
And we love you. So thank you. And this is Blue, and this is Revolutionary Addictdotes. And we out.
This is medicine. This is medicine.
Yeah. International traveler, unfurl and unravel my flag. Back in my bags, headed back from the lab, back of the cab. Pull out the schedule, the iPad full of rhymes, vocal sessions. My book in this ninth draft. My pen is illness, I'm sick and he penicillin. These men are killing for cream, the thick and the sand feeling. I tend to reveal the truth like a wardrobe malfunction and making them feel the proof. Prepared for mass consumption, catching flies with the honey, but I hate flies. Now they got their hands in my pocket with their eyes on my plate size. Counting my money, you should be counting your blessings. Studying my moves, you should be studying your lessons, cause you still fail. Basking in the sun, but you still pale. In comparison, you so blind, I should rhyme and braille. Lyrics so rich, where you cheap as a designer sale, you kinda stale. Shit is so deep, I should rhyme and well.
Motherfucker, give me that kale, that broad brock, I'm out for that guap guap. I ride out and play my own song in the drop top. These chicken shit niggas try to cock block, I leave them with red Kool-Aid dripping out they snot box. Breaking through walls like East Germany, your girl keeps curving me, but my name stay in her mouth like cheap surgery. 20,000 leagues under the sea, I breathe perfectly. 20,000 fiends on the street, I serve verbally and swerve verminy. Skirmishy niggas looking like they wanna jump, acting Kermity. My mother told me I was spitting fire ever since she started burping me. I'm in the Uber Excel, white driver like my Hershey. Moonlight shining on my face as I step inside the place and make a fan out of those who never heard of me. Baby gave me brain and I'm reflecting on a train of thought eternally and tapping ass thoroughly. Niggas is in the grass acting serpentine. I'm Ricky Ticky Tab with the permaline. A light skinned Wesley Snipes in the club looking for some blood to nourish me. Bitch, we flourishing. This is medicine, as we embark upon the places that you never been. From the steps of the Apollo to the Kremlin. Swan goes out to all my sisters and my brethren. Struggling, living check to check, locking in, checking in. To all my niggas locked up without evidence, and all the bitches knocked up without benefits. This ain't rap, this is medicine. This is medicine, medicine.